Good evening and welcome to Mindful Life 203. I am your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 28th of March in the year 2023. Yeah, tonight we're talking the US. We're talking about our big neighbors, the big brothers over in the United States to our northwest. And the fact is, unfortunately, here in the Caribbean, here in Trinidad and Tobago, what happens in the United States affects us greatly every time, always. It's just the fact of the matter. If you live next to the large empire, you are going to be swayed by what happens in the large empire. There were no small cities or civilizations or tribes living near to Rome that were not swayed by what occurs in Rome. So yeah, we're living next to the United States, and of course we'd be affected by that. And there was a shooting where a person went into school and shut up the school. Now in the United States, that seems like, unfortunately, not that strange of an occurrence of late, but this one was a bit more unique. And if you are one of those people to believe in, if you ever hear people talk about the simulation, this is a good one to say that this has to be a simulation, because this last issue, it could seem like the last issue crammed in every single hot button cultural topic that the United States has into one news event. It's a transgender, it's a trans woman, a transgender female. Listen, sometimes the trans language could be a little confusing. If somebody is a trans woman, as in a trans woman, they are female and a trans woman. But if somebody is a trans but a woman, then they may be a trans man. Whatever. The person was born female and was a trans man, went by the he him pronouns. So that's that. Trans issues, guns, it happened inside a Christian church and schools. Like all of the hot button cultural topics over in the United States, all smushed into one event, and bam, thrown in your face. The trans man murdered 3 9-year-old children and 3 of the staff in that church school over there in Tennessee. And part of the reason that the trans man did it, they said, was because they believe that, the Christians and that state have been persecuting the trans people. And here's the reason I think this is heading for really bad disaster for the United States. The trans community is a unique community. There's a 42% suicide rate, self-deletion rate. Let's keep good for the algorithms. There's something like a 42% self-deletion rate in that community. If you convince people who have a 42% proclivity to wanting to end it all anyway, you convince them that they are being persecuted by specific groups of people, and what they need to do is take up arms and ammunition against these people, you are going to get into real problems. And then, that is a community that is already in the mental illness category. They're already in the mental illness category. If you take testosterone as a female, you are going to get bouts of aggression, bouts of uncontrolled aggression. So you already have the tendency to try to end it all. You are struggling with mental illnesses. You are hopped up on testosterone, which is giving you bouts of aggression. You're seeing the direction this is heading in? And then you point these people at a group and say, that group is persecuting you. That group doesn't want you to exist. Go do something about that. And then almost all of the people in that community, oftentimes they have other mental illnesses and mental struggles. So many times a high proportion of them have depression. So they would be taking SSRIs, antidepressants and such. They would be on all kinds of very strong medication. That's not a group you want to have playing around on the dangerous ends of things. And there was a story, I remember this story from since was that 2 years ago, this story was written, 2021, was it? Yes, 2021. In March of 2021, just nearly exactly 2 years ago, thereabouts, a story was written in Teen Vogue, of all places, yes, Teen Vogue, on Transgender Day of Visibility. It's time to finally stop policing trans rage. To be young and trans in 2021 is to be constantly told that you cannot know your own heart. A whole industry has sprung up of pundits who seem to insist that trans kids are incapable of making their own decisions, and states across the country have taken up legislation to deny treatment to trans teens and to keep them off sports teams. There, in this article, they quoted specifically a trans man, which is a female, attempting to be a man, who is on testosterone and is saying that, you know, people are telling them that some of their rage may be because of that, but they're saying no, it's authentic. When Grimm started taking hormones as a teenager, he says, bear in mind, he here is referring to a biological female. He says people used his testosterone as a scapegoat anytime he lost his cool, claiming that testosterone was causing his outbursts rather than legitimate feelings. It would piss me off like nothing else in the world, because here's this life-saving medication, and dare you say that my emotional dysregulation could have anything to do with that? You're understanding the insane world that they're creating over there? Dark Knight GG, you've been out for a while, sir. You've been out for a while. The room with the plant, the studio with the plant, has been retired for 6 months, 7 months. But this article is taking the very, very real factual reality that testosterone increases aggression. Men are naturally more aggressive than women, and it just so happens the men have more testosterone than women. Is there no link there? Testosterone increases aggression. Even men who are taking anabolic steroids, who are taking steroids that act as testosterone, they very often get that same rage monster problem. And they're telling these young people that if you indeed turn into a rage monster, it's because the world is persecuting you. It's not because you are taking a hormone that isn't really meant for your body and it could cause some really negative side effects. No. That's not why. No. It's the world. I wouldn't like to see any more of this happen in the United States. But looking at what they're doing, it could seem like more of this is inevitable. All over social media. For years now, the social media has allowed many people in that community, because that community was seen as, you know, the victimized community. Many people in that community have been calling for violence and people to take up arms and kill all turfs and all of this kind of nonsense. That's not something strange in that community. If you now see the rubber meeting the road, we're in for some scary times, I think. America is close to imploding, Kuvon says, and Empress Rooney says, I wish they would hurry it up. Could there be a war on religion? Yeah, here's the reality. Here's the reality, and this is something that some atheists don't like to face, but it is a reality. Every single dictatorial, tyrannical, oppressive, authoritarian government that ever existed sought to squash religion. Because there's a reason for that. Religion make someone believe, allow someone to believe that there's a higher power outside of anything that I can control here. While if I am an authoritarian state, I am a government that wants everyone in my country to believe I have the power, then believing in God kind of surpasses me. So I kind of don't want that. So the attack on religion, oftentimes there's a political angle to that in many cases. So you would see in certain countries there would seem to be a political attack on religion. One political group seems to be more in favor of religion, while one political group seems to be less in favor of religion, and there are political angles to this. There are political angles to this. If it were another religious school, they would call it a hate crime, yes. And I think in terms of what is considered a hate crime, it was a hate crime. But I don't like the idea of hate crime personally. I find a crime is a crime. Like, if you murder someone, it shouldn't be a hate murder. I don't care why you murdered the person. If you take up a weapon, walk into a school and murder 6 innocent people, I don't need to know whether you hated them or loved them to prosecute you for this crime. I don't see how it being a hate crime should make it any worse than if it was not a hate crime. Like, what's the point of that? It's to me, it's similar to like when you hear people talk about social justice or gender justice or gender equality. Like, to me, when you're talking about things like justice, when you're talking about things like equality, if you have to add a qualifier to it, then you're kind of losing the picture there. You're losing the picture a bit. It's a war on gender. Empress Rooney says a war on gender. Well, you could blame feminism for that one. You could blame feminism for the war on gender part, because for years now, since the 60s, the world has been constantly pushing forward with the idea that men and women are basically the same. We are basically the same, you know. Everything that makes men and women different could be altered by modern science. That's what the world has been preaching, and feminism has been preaching for like the last 50 years. So any surprise now that people have taken that to the logical conclusion of it? Okay, if everything about men and women are interchangeable, and you know, it's nothing special that differentiates us from each other, and what science is for is to make us comfortable. Science isn't there to cure illness only. Science is there to make us live our true lives. So if I could morph myself into what I believe my true self is, then by all means I should. It's a spiritual war this country facing. Of course, I do. Feminists are fighting for trans women to be in female spaces. Women are superior, actually. Learned that recently. Really? Superior in what way? How are women superior? Superior to whom? Superior how? You're a woman supremacist? But yes, as you're talking about women, the TSTT CEO was out there in Tobago talking to the young ladies and females out there in Tobago, encouraging them that, you know, well, at least encouraging the parents to push their students, push their children into not just the old faithful fields. I'll ask those questions next opportunity I get. Kilvon says America is too happy not facing enough of a challenge, so people are creating these frivolous battles. Well, the United States created an unfair system off of the backs of the working class of the entire world. Because they have the US dollar, they didn't have to keep producing actually valuable things out of their industries. They didn't have to keep producing because everyone in the world needs the US dollar. All they have to produce is the US dollar. So then you're creating Nancy Story jobs that do nothing and pay people $120,000 a year for doing nothing, because you've created a system where you don't need productivity to keep the system running. All you need is the US dollar, being the petrodollar and the international exchange dollar. Once you have that, you have the power. But as they lose that dollar power, they would start to have to return to manufacturing power, you know, that kind of hard economics, hard industry power. And I think a lot of those BuzzFeed writers and a lot of the industry that was created in the United States over the last 25 or so years, many of them would struggle when, if or when the US is toppled from their pinnacle position in the world, because they're accustomed working for resources that aren't in line with reality. It isn't in line with reality. It's not realistic that you type up 2 stories per month and get the kind of money to live in a luxury apartment in New York. That's not in line with reality. The only reason you could do that is because somewhere someone in the world is working for below the average salary, below the average amount, in order for you to be able to live above the average amount. That's how it works. You're getting the cream of the crop off of someone else's labor. That's what the United States was doing. World War before that happened, very likely, Richard Glubman. I kind of agree with that. I don't think the United States necessarily would just slither off quietly into the sunset. How does a country compete with China? I'm not sure, but there are problems with China also, because China is a centralized planned economy, and centralized planned economies don't work. China is struggling with their banks too. Their banks aren't allowing people to access resources, so it's not like China is running smoothly. The problem with China is that they have that huge amount of human capital that they're willing to use and abuse, but they're kind of losing some of that, because India didn't struggle with the one-child policy thing. That one-child policy business that China did gave China a serious impediment looking towards the future. China may not be able to recover to go on for the next 30 years. The problem with many of the people who think in this overpopulation kind of nonsense idea, if 1 billion people are on the earth right now and none of them reproduce, within the next generation there would be 0 people. It's not like those billion people, you know, they're just hanging around and some of them are multiplying asexually. No, all have to come from reproduction. If you have to have the same billion people left, everyone has to reproduce some one person to replace themselves. And if you play with that, you go below that replacement level. Oftentimes your population spirals, and historically, populations that have begun spiraling below replacement level never recover. So some people could play around with that, and China did play around with that, so they could be in for some problems in the future. But India did not play around with that, so India may be heading for some global supremacy. The Indians are taking over the world, you know. The Indians are taking over the world. You look at the global CEOs, you look at the CEOs of tech companies, you look at the Prime Minister of Britain. The Indians out there are doing the most, and they're over 1 billion people too. They have the human capital, and I mean, India isn't the freest place, but they're more free than China, and freedom generally increases productivity and increases wealth gain, wealth building. So India may actually be a bigger one to look out for in the future, and I believe India is a nuclear power too, just by the way. And isn't India doing deals in yuan now, as in the Chinese currency? America's greatest hope is the conservatives have children, but liberals want to save the world. Good night, shy guy, and not have children. Yeah, well, that's the self-defeating part of it, that the conservatives have children, and the liberals in the United States generally have much less children, and they believe more in abortion, and even the children that they do have, they're okay with their children becoming transgender. And if your child becomes transgender, they're basically never ever going to have a family, because the process of those things kind of totally disrupts the inner working of the reproductive system. So yeah, they have very few children, but there's a saying about Marxists and socialists: they don't have children, they have yours. And that's just the reality of it. Many of the people on the more left-wing side of most political belief systems, they go into the education systems. You look at the education faculty in the university. The education faculty in the university is by nearly all means in nearly all universities a very left-wing faculty. So the teachers generally that come out of that system are generally of a certain lean and a certain political ideology. And the thing is, even if you make the most children, but you give your children into a school system where the teachers have your children for 8 hours in the day, and they're the ones that are telling your children what to believe and what is right and what is wrong, etc., etc., etc. The fact that you have children is going to be inconsequential to the grand scheme of it. Your children would come back from university and cuss you and tell you that you are an oppressor, and and say they are joining the revolution, the global revolution to throw over capitalism. After you work yourself to the bone to send them to school, they'll be educated into hating you. So it's not just about who has the children in terms of who is making them. It's about who has the children in terms of who is educating them, who is teaching them, who has the ear and the mind of the children. That's why when people talk about public education being being a tool to, brainwash the masses. Glad I'm following you, learning a lot. Thank you, Marlon Harry. When people speak about education being a tool like that, yes, to some extent it is. To some extent it is. It is a very convenient means of basic control of the society. The people who control the curriculum, they control the future of the society. And in many older civilizations, when they were taking over a civilization, very often what they would do is they would kill out the older generation, but they would keep the youth, the children, because they could be educated into the ways of whichever conquering nation is taking them over. So the youth are the key. The youth are the key. Not just who makes the children, but who makes the children's minds. And that's why I don't believe, regularly in Trinidad you hear this statement, you make the child but you don't make the mind. And I hate that statement personally because I think it's nonsense. I think you obviously do make their mind. That's what you spend the entire effort of parenting doing. The effort of parenting is attempting to make a good mind, and a good mind for a good human being. That's the point of parenting. If you couldn't make the child's mind, then parenting would be pointless. You make the child, and it's like a snake. You make the child, leave the child there, and you slither off into the night and leave the child to do its own thing because you couldn't make the child's mind anyway. What's the point? Of course you could make the child's mind. Exactly, Empress Rooney. Too much lazy parents, it's a lazy parent issue. So yeah, you make the child's mind, and the problem is when you think you can't make the child's mind, someone else is going to go out there and make the child's mind for you. So something that I always point at to that, making children's minds. There were 14, 15, 16-year-old children in the Middle East during the height of the whole war on terror and the disruption in the Middle East. 15, 14, 16-year-old children that were suicide bombers. They would go out there and blow up themselves to kill other people. How do you get a teenager to do that if you couldn't make their mind? While you're saying, well, I can't get my child to study maths, someone was able to convince their child to off themselves and take out a few people with them. And you can't convince them to do some algebra. Something isn't adding up there, right? You're getting that. Something there is not adding up. Trini Hotep says that's why Rockefeller funded feminism, so that once you shake the family unit and now educate children in schools who really have control over your kids. The funny thing to me is how many of those conspiracies are partially true. That Rockefeller did indeed fund some early parts of feminism and the public education system, because, and it's not necessarily as obviously, kind of evil kind of thing, not necessarily. It's if you ever heard the term the banality of evil, many times what creates some of the most horrible situations sometimes is not someone planning a devious plan or something, it's just simple selfishness. simples seeking their own self-interest. So for Rockefeller, it was an issue of finding workers for their factories. Finding workers for their factories. If I want to find workers for my factories, I have to train them to not act like they acted when they were farmers and they were those bumpkin farmers out in the country. No, you now must learn to function in the industry. You must learn time. You must learn reading and writing in those ways. So those are very important. You must learn simple mathematics, but you must also learn how to keep in order. So you must respond to the bell. You must line up. You must sit and stand when spoken to. Assembly is very important. Learning that assembly. Learning the idea of being deducted points and marks for coming late. Those things, the whole setup was a setup to mimic the factory system, to train better factory workers. That's literally what it was for. And as I was saying, I don't hold it against Mr. Rockefeller necessarily. I understand why. If you're thinking about making the better factory for yourself, it makes sense. Is that basically what education is still? Yes, Sir Kaka, it still is that. The problem is that the industries that existed back then to create the education, to structure the education for it, no longer really exist. So we're using a public education system that was created to make good worker bees for the Industrial Revolution that has long since passed. We are in the information revolution. Now we might actually be in the artificial intelligence revolution. We may have gone probably 3, 4, 5 major revolutions past the industrial revolution, but our schools are still structured around the industrial revolution. The bell ringing, that assembly, that whole lineup structure, industrial revolution kind of thing. If you are doing things based on the information technology era, it would have been different from that. But that requires people to actually put thought into it. Truth is, we don't really know how to educate our young people for what's coming, Kevon says. Agreed. But that has always kind of been the case. It's always been the case that you're looking to educate the next generation for the unknown. That has always been the case. It's not necessarily something that is totally novel to us. But I think the difference is we aren't putting enough thought into, well, when I say we, I mean we as the people who are in charge of the education system. We aren't putting enough thought into how to change the system like that. I remember since I was in secondary school, and recently it dawned on me that I have left secondary school. Decades. Well, not left. I entered secondary school decades. I could put a plural there. Decades ago. Wow. Time flies. But I can remember my days in secondary school, in schooling. And one of the things that they were talking about in the early 2000s, I'm talking about 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 4, 5, those kind of years. Early 2000s. Was putting putting computers in all of the schools, computers in all of the classrooms. And the computerization of schooling from 2002 till 2022 barely moved an inch. Like, if you bring a student from 1990 to go to school in 2022, it's not going to be that different. The school is going, okay, I understand that. It's nothing fantastic. The schooling hasn't changed, while the work market, the labor market, the life outside has changed greatly. I think that's a dangerous precedent. And the TSTT CEO was saying something similar to that. TSTT CEO tells parents, do not push your children into traditional fields. Parents are being advised to encourage their children to pursue careers in technology as opposed to traditional fields. The advice came from TSTT CEO Lisa Agard on Friday as she delivered the feature address at the Women's Forum hosted by the THA Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation at the Magdalena Grand Beach and Gulf Resort, Lowlands, Tobago. TSTT and the Magdalena Grand Resort also collaborated to host the event, promoting women's empowerment through digital education, technology and innovation. It was held to commemorate International Women's Day, which was observed on March 8th. I have a problem with these things, just by the way, As I said back on Women's Day, by all statistical measures in Trinidad and Tobago, girls are outperforming boys at SEA. Girls are outperforming boys at CXC. Girls are outperforming boys at CAPE. Girls are outperforming boys at undergraduate level. Girls are receiving more postgraduate degrees. Women make up the majority of our managerial class. Women make up the majority of our permanent secretaries and that managerial level in the public service. Why is it that we still as a society create so many particular avenues for women only? Why? What is the purpose? And this, to me, this is a similar issue like we were talking about with the education and the schooling. One of the issues we have as a society, one of the issues I find we have as people, is we're so slow to recognize when things change. Okay, you were saying that women and females and girls were struggling in the school system before. So you're doing all of these things to push them further in it. Okay, when they reach over, they pass equal now they're excelling more. When do the programs stop? Or when do the programs equalize? What's the point of that? And then you see article after article coming out now where millennial women are saying that they are struggling to find spouses on their level. Well, of course they're struggling to find spouses on their level, because as a society we have pushed all of the women of the younger generations to attain further in the work sphere, and we are inhibiting oftentimes the men. The women have an advantage, and then these women who went through the entire education and work sphere with an advantage reach to the higher position now, and they're looking to find a man on their position or higher, and what would you have it? All the men have been left back. So oh no. Does that make sense as a society though? You see, that's the issue when you see so often on the feminist side where they're talking like, it's women against men and the women have to stand up for other women. And on some of those overly managed sides where it's like, the men and those dirty women, and you have to be very careful. At the end of the day, you still need both man and woman if you want a functioning society. If you want your people to live on through time, you need both men and women to get along well. Joel Chow says, let me be real, woman date across and up. I never see a rich woman pick up a broke man. Yes, that's my point. And if as a society we are pushing all of the women to higher levels than the men, and women naturally look to date across and up, what are you creating for the women? Not problems? I have a female friend who says she can't meet a man at her level. I assure you that probably every person has a female friend that would say similar things. And isn't that partially a societal problem too, where we've created the situation where the women excel way more than their male counterparts? Richard Goodman says, but aren't the same opportunities available for men? Lisa Agard on Friday as she delivered the feature address at the Women's Forum hosted by the THA Division of Tourism, promoting women empowerment through digital education, technology and innovation. Does that sound like the men have that opportunity? promoting women's empowerment through digital education, technology, and innovation. Where does a man get his opportunity in that event there? Which part in that event has the male opportunity? So no, Richard Glubman, the same opportunities are not available for the men. There are many, many female-specific opportunities. There are many female-specific encouragements. And then that's already aside from the fact that the industrialization of the public education that we got created a schooling that already is engineered more towards what younger girls would be more comfortable with. And this isn't a knock on male or females, this is a reality. Males and females, even from 2 days out of the womb, there are differences between males and females. And boys, by and large, are not as suited for this sit down and pay attention for 8 hours a day and no running, no while playing, none of that. Boys aren't really suited for that. And that's the system we created with the public education. And then we're shocked that many of the boys are frustrated and act out after a while. Is that really a surprise? How can we determine how many young males are able to code websites as against females? I don't know how we determine something like that. The thing is, Ronnie, that's not totally true, you know. In a year, it will all be AI. The AI, best believe this, what the AI is a tool. What it's going to be is not that the AI is going to replace all work. The AI is going to replace all of the tools of work. So it's not going to be that the AI it means that no one is going to have to code again, but no, you're going to have to learn how to code using AI, or how to code for the AI, or how to prompt the AI to create the correct code, because the AI isn't able to think for itself. The AI isn't able to direct innovation, so that still requires human thinking. It's just the AI is able to do the processing power for the humans. That's why education would still be around, jobs would still be around. But if you think that you are going to be educated in the old style of education, in all of the areas that the AI would be able to do, these are exactly the things that you don't need to do, because that's exactly what the AI can do. If you're still getting educated in that line, well, you may be in for some problems. We better get our meals into that field. Yeah, you better. Get them learning. But get them interested and learning is the main part. Get them interested and learning. Because the world isn't what it was. If you are interested enough in a topic, you could pull yourself and educate yourself on nearly any topic with the internet. It's a different world now. So the parents' duty might be primarily to encourage and spur on learning, beside necessarily pushing you into what field you should go in, because the reality might be that in some cases, you see, we're living in a strange generation now. In the 1600s, your parents always knew better than you what was happening in and around the world all the time. From since humanity started crawling around till the 1600s, 1800s, 1900s. But now it's a bit of a different time. You might be surprised. It might be that your child might have better knowledge of the avenues better available for learning and jobs in the modern market. And if you're looking to overly direct your child on which direction to go, you may not even know. So maybe your most important duty may be pushing learning in and of itself. Whatever you do, you have to become educated in it. You have to formally learn this thing. Don't take the excuse that, okay, well, this old time education system thing ain't that, all of this work online anymore. I don't need to learn that anymore. Okay, you may not need to learn that, but you need to learn something. And in order for education to make sense, there must be some structure to it. So you're not just going to randomly look at YouTube videos for 6 hours and call that education. No, you're going to have some structure to learning this thing. You're going to master it. The love easy money could be a problem also. Yep. Empress Rooney says, Nathan, have some male empowerment seminars. Not a bad idea. But seminars cost. So yeah. Maybe when I get the capital to host those seminars, I'll look to do it. I don't mind that. I like doing that. I think that's needed even. Many of the young men in Trinidad and Tobago need some of that. Male empowerment. And the thing is, I won't call it male empowerment in that sense because I don't like that idea. I don't think we're supposed to empower you like that. No, you're supposed to become competent. You're supposed to become disciplined, and being a disciplined, competent, upstanding member of your society, holding up your rules, holding up your duties. That's what empowers you as a man. You want to become empowered as a man? Become competent, become disciplined, hold up your rules and duties and responsibilities in society, and all of a sudden you'd notice you feel that empowerment showering over you. It's not that you go to a seminar and someone tells you that you read these mantras in the morning and look in the mirror and tell yourself you are strong, you are beautiful, you are handsome, and you know this and you can handle this. No. You go out there and you discipline yourself. You repeat the tasks that you must do even when you don't want to do them. We, the live, will sponsor. Ronnie, if that's true, I have no problem with that. If the live is sponsoring a male empowerment seminar, I will host it gladly. So just let me know what the budget is, so I'll know what kind of location to book, and we'll proceed. Alright, people. It is closing in on 11 o'clock. This has been a good mindful live. It's been a good mindful live. Ooh. It's been a good mindful live. Any further questions or comments before I dive out? Yes, Rooney. Yes. Don't worry. Things are in movement to get it a little more organized. The aim as we are improving. Don't worry. Thoughts on the petrodollar, I'll get to that. The aim as we are improving, things are coming in slowly. As we are improving is to make sure and get a lot more rigid with the 9:15 start, and as we outfit to another studio, we're looking to move again. As we outfit to another studio, get some live co-hosts each night. Won't that be spectacular? Is the Chinese PVC the correct size? I don't know. I suppose so. If it's not the correct size, then they wouldn't fit into the fittings. Are they fitting into the local fittings? I guess that would be the question. Thoughts on the petrodollar? My thoughts on the petrodollar are complex. The petrodollar to me enables slavery. I've made numerous videos on this explaining this. The petrodollar enables slavery because the US is able to print money and exchange money, paper, for actual labor around the world. So you in Sierra Leone is you're digging your entire life in a mine to dig out some kind of mineral, and you sell that. That's actual labor you put into acquiring that resource. And the US government clicks on the money printers in the Fed and go and print off the money and buy that from you. So that's kind of slavery when you think about it. They're doing nothing and getting your labor for it. So the petrodollar enables. Hi. Hi. The petrodollar enables. That's how it goes. The petrodollar enables that kind of slavery to extent. So that's horrible. However, the petrodollar is the reality of a conquering empire. The petrodollar could have happened because the US was the biggest, baddest, and strongest, and they say what you're gonna do about it. Everyone benefited who could have benefited, and who could not benefit couldn't do anything to change it. So that's the reality, and I understand that that has been the reality of humanity's existence since time immemorial. So I am not of the illusion that necessarily we could do away with the petrodollar and we would just get a free system where everyone is equal. That's very likely not what is going to happen. If we do indeed do away with the petrodollar, we may just find ourselves under the thumbs of something else or someone else. It would be glorious if it could go back to something like a gold standard, but then you may find yourself under the thumbs of people looking to collect all of the gold in the world and replace it with something else. So it's just the reality of empire. Petrodollar, I think, is the reality of empire. Are you religious? If yes, what and why? Yes, I am religious. You see, there may have been a time in my younger life where I may have leaned into the spiritual, not religious statement. But as I get older and I think through some of these things more realistically, more logically, you understand that that doesn't actually line up with a sensible argument. What religion is just a formal outline, a formal outlay of how you interact with that spiritualism that you say you are spiritual. And to me, the question of whether God exists isn't really a question. Regardless if you believe in the Big Bang, if you believe in creation, no matter how you think about it, there needs to be something that was there in the beginning outside of what is in creation. So yeah, and if you're telling me that that God does exist, and but God exists and spirituality exists, but no other human has ever been able to have any kind of knowledge of how to do anything like this. My relationship with God and my understanding of spirituality is so idiosyncratic that I do not ascribe to any of the other religions ever created. To me, that sounds like narcissism of the youth. That's what it sounds like to me. Maybe you may be legitimate in that statement, but to me it sounds like narcissism. That you believe you have found the real, true, unique way of interacting with the spirit. Now, I understand the criticisms of religion, as in very often formal religion has created some real horrible outcomes, but that's not a critique necessarily on the value or factual reality or whether it is true of religions or not. That's just a display of human nature. Humans have used governments to commit atrocities. Humans have used schools to commit atrocities. Any powerful structure that humans get their hands on, they use them to commit atrocities. So the fact that there have been religions where atrocities have been committed in the name of the religion doesn't negate the benefit, the veracity of the religion. So that's the what and why. All right, any further questions or comments? Any further questions or comments before I dive out? Woo! the background music going hard. No further questions or comments, and if that is the case, well, I will be diving out, and I'll see you guys again for the next Mindful Live, which will be tomorrow evening. Now, we're trying to get it to the 9:30. Today was a problem. That 10 o'clock today, this evening, the 10 o'clock was a problem, I admit. Problem. We're trying to get that 9:30. Humans are better off with religion, if not replace them with personality cults. That's the next issue. I have recognized that humans require religion. Every human is religious, and every human that says they're not religious, they follow some religion. Every human has a series of norms and practices that they do religiously. Every human has it. Every human has a moral guide to their life. Every human has one. You may not have the same one as someone else, but you have one. Everyone does. And when you attempt to pretend like you don't have one, what that means is no one knows what your moral guide is. You see, something that I noticed regularly, and you notice it regularly in the Western world. So many people very often criticize Christians that aren't even Christians. Watch this big Christian fella now, boy. Watch what this Christian fella do. But you cussing and you's not Christian, boy. You see, that's the thing with having a known, recognizable moral code. You could hold yourself to it, and others could hold you accountable to it, because everyone knows what your moral code is. But I am not religious, but I have no religion, so I have no known moral code. I could wake up 10 in the morning, go to sleep 5 in the morning, and it doesn't matter. Whatever I do doesn't matter, because there's no known moral code that anybody could hold me up and judge me with. And oh boy, do humans hate being judged. But the reality is, there's benefit in judgment. Just as the SEA, to some extent, that's what the SEA is to some extent, a judgment, is it not? You're judging the students on their academic capabilities, and I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. We may question if it's an accurate judgment, but I don't think the judgment in and of itself is a bad thing. You want to know what level they are at. So says Stena. So if there are questions or comments for me, I'll stay. Any further questions or comments? Uh-huh. Yes, it was nice. Yes, it looked like we done it. All right, folks, it was nice. Tomorrow night, before the holiday, I'll try and make it. Yeah. Folks, it was nice. I will see you guys again for the next Mindful Live tomorrow evening at around that 9:30 p.m. time. I hope you were educated, informed, or entertained. I am your host, Nathan Springer. This was the Mindful Live 203. It was. And I will see you guys again tomorrow. Laters, folks. Peace out. Laters.